Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Alhamdulillah. Welcome, inshallah, to our fourth session. And inshallah, we're just going to invite our guest through. And the invite has gone through, alhamdulillah. And now, inshallah, while we just wait for our guest to come on, alhamdulillah. Waiting. Okay, assalamu alaikum. Welcome, inshallah, as you're coming on. Okay, Uzma is coming on. Approve. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Is it clear, Zuhair?
Ji, alhamdulillah, well, mashallah. Are you okay?
Yeah. It's clear now?
Yeah, beautiful, mashallah. Alhamdulillah wa shukr.
Alhamdulillah.
So, inshallah, what I'm going to do before we get going is I'm just going to share the video from where we are at the moment onto some of our pages. I will share it onto yours as well. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Friends timeline, and your name is Uzma, Raheem, so that at least your followers can also follow it from there, inshallah.
Yes, sure.
Okay. Alhamdulillah, how is the weather and what is the time there, and what's the story on your side?
It seems to be better now, although we have not been having a very good winter. It's been very fraudulent. Oh. Yes.
Okay. Fraudulent, that's a big word, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
No, inshallah. So today, inshallah, we're welcoming our guests that are joining us for this Aafiyah Wellbeing Summit. And more importantly, alhamdulillah, it's an opportunity for myself to connect with my various guests from around the world. Alhamdulillah, most I have met, some I haven't yet. But alhamdulillah, I had the tawfiq and the pleasure of meeting with yourself, or you being able to host myself in Jeddah at your educational center, alhamdulillah. And that was amazing, mashallah, because it brings to life really what it is that a person is following and what their passion in life is. Because a lot of the time when we work in this sector, people really do not connect with the struggle that actually goes into actually developing a project, in believing firmly about a project, and then also the time and the money and the resources and the impact on your life and your family. No one will ever appreciate that until only in hindsight, unfortunately. So, alhamdulillah.
Yes.
So, inshallah, can please, Sister Uzma, for the benefit of our viewers, give us an introduction of who you are, where you're from, what do you do, and let's see what happens from there.
Oh, I think that's one of the worst things possible you could have asked me. I'm really bad at introducing myself.
Distract you so I can do something else here.
Well, I am from Hyderabad in India, but I have lived all my life in Saudi Arabia. And for a short period of time, I was even based, when I was a baby, I was based in Iran, Tabriz. Okay, and I have lived abroad all my life. Walaikum Assalam, Sadat. Some of the parents are joining in now. And please leave your questions, because you are our target audience for today, and we wish to address all those things that you have not been able to ask us so far. I have been working with children with disabilities and disorders for the past 24 years. Yep. Basically started my life in this field itself. I never got an opportunity to work elsewhere or in any other field. My life has been with disabilities and disorders.
Right. And is that, I mean, you're a doctor, so what's your doctorate in? And then how do you...
My doctorate and my PhD is in clinical psychopathology. Okay. And although I was meant to work with adults, but I think what children are like, and the science behind childhood, the various aspects through which they learn, totally fascinated me. And yes, I changed my direction. I have never worked with adults. I have just seen cases that really need my help. Otherwise, I have been concentrating only in the field of pedagogy.
Okay, alhamdulillah. So inshallah, I think let's dig into the topic at hand, because for your viewers that don't know myself, my name is Zuhair Giraj. I live in the UK. I'm the founder of a healing modality within the framework of the Islamic Sharia and Sunnah, named Aafiyah Healing. And Aafiyah Healing is one of those things that Aafiyah, one of the names the Prophet ﷺ gave to holistic well-being. A lot of the times when we go to doctors, they're dealing with our physical health only. You go to psychiatrists, they'll deal with your mind. And then you go to a sheikh or someone that they can deal with your spirit. So what we wanted with Aafiyah Healing is a holistic modality that a person, inshallah, can be dealt with from physical pain, from emotional issues, but also spiritual matters as well. We don't do jinn busting, but anything that is therapeutic in that way, then that is where so that's where we connect, inshallah. So this is why my reason to connect with Dr. Uzma as well was simply the fact that I deal with the parents usually that have children with disabilities, and she works with the children that have the disabilities, and she sees the impact on a daily basis on parents. And having spoken to a lot of these parents that come to us for different forms of healing, then we see that the emotional stress upon the parents is so much that inevitably it impacts the child again in their whole ability to grow and their ability to feel loved and secure. So I think that's the point, inshallah, if we can start off with, please, if you can share your experience on that.
I think a lot of the teachers that have just joined in, and I'm just watching them, and a lot of these teachers are very concerned on why parents are in a denial mode when they have a child with disability or a disorder. I think coming from a field of mental health and as a mental health advocate, you can't really blame a lot of parents for that, because some of them are coming from a very insecure space. Having a trauma like this, a trauma of any sort in your life, what happens is your denial mode immediately gets into operation. It protects you. So for a lot of parents, getting into that denial mode helps them cope. It helps. It's a coping strategy. It's a coping mechanism for some parents. I mean, in 24 years of working with these children, I have seen a lot of parents who come to me and either the father or the mother are in denial. And what they do not realize is, unless and until you get a diagnosis, a child that does not have a diagnosis is actually going to cost you more in the future. The cost of raising a child with disability and disorder is much more in the future than it is right now. While it's still a child, it helps you cope.
And what are the sort of the signs? I mean, you see, this is quite interesting because you mentioned there's a denial mode, and the moment a child, is found to be lacking in some way, shape, form, or other, then I think to what extent, one of my questions is, to what extent does culture play a part in it? Our Indian subcontinent culture.
I've lost you there, Zuhair. I couldn't hear you clearly.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat that. I said, to what extent does our culture play in?
I lost you for some time. I couldn't hear you clearly.
Okay, to what extent does our culture play in this denial mode? Is it the lack of education, or do people feel that they are being punished by Allah?
Zuhair, I'm not able to hear you clearly. The signal's very weak. I've not been able to hear you clearly.
Again, let me know when you can hear me. Can you hear me?
No, it's getting interrupted a lot over here.
Okay.
Can you try that again?
Yeah, it's still fine on my side. Okay, so to what extent is this denial mode culturally based? To what extent is our denial?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, to what extent is our denial culturally based?
To a huge extent, because you see, stigma is associated drastically with our cultures. Stigma, we are very stigma concerned people, especially from the Indian subcontinent, and denial paralyzes the mind, and stigma exists because of the fear that many have. They have a fear of disabilities and disorders. A lot of parents have a fear of that. So it paralyzes your mind. And what do? You immediately get into a denial mode. And the parents who approach me when they're in a denial mode, there's not much you can do, because eventually their word is the bond. So we have to back down, and parents usually wake up when it's too late, and which is very, very sad for the child. Very, very sad for the child's future. I mean, think of it this way. I like to, if you can visualize a sweater and you have got a thread coming out, and the moment you pull at that thread and you keep pulling, you see how the sweater just unravels. That's the way it is. You know, you don't take care when the thread first comes out, then your whole sweater is going to come out. And um, we've also got to remember that, you know, these are painful realities. Having a child with any kind of an issue is painful for anyone. And parents usually tend to skirt the issue, which is, you know, expected. But what denial does it curtains the real issue on hand. It curtains the warning signs. It curtains the interventions that should be given for the child. And uh, that's the failure on their part. And most people, I mean, including myself, and I'm sure you as a parent yourselves aware, we want to see our children's strengths. We want to see our children's, progress. We do not want to see warnings, and we don't want to see weaknesses. We do not want to see faults in our children. And yeah, there's certain people coming up. Walaikum salam to everybody who's watching. And
please, inshallah, if everyone
someone's up.
viewers can share
Yeah.
as well how they're going on. If they can share while you're here, especially tag those people in that you know they've got children with special needs. And subhanallah, one of the biggest issues that we generally tend to see with our cultural mindset is the fact that Allah is punishing people. That's why He gave them disabled children, na'uzubillah.
Well, that usually comes from the extended families, usually the in-laws. Usually it's the in-laws, the old guard sitting at home, the extended families, the grandparents. They are the ones who are very, very intelligent in pointing out that the daughter-in-law must have done something, and that's why the child is disabled. Whereas the man's side of the family will say, woman's side of the family will say, it's probably the, your husband's side of the family that has it. I have a lot of parents who lie to me, and they lie regularly. A lot of the times, my first question to any parent is, are you related by blood? They will deny, and they will say that, no, he's not my cousin, she's not my cousin. And then, it comes out usually in tests that they are congenitally related. And I'm no one. You're doing your child a harm when you are not admitting to the true facts. Be honest with those people who are trying to help your child.
Ji. And this is it. So, okay, so when is the best time when can you see the signs at the earliest point? When should parents really be looking for issues within their child?
Today I had a parent who addressed me and said that my child is 1.9, and I had another child at the center that I saw last week, and he was also 1.9, and he's displaying all the signs of autism. And so that means, I mean, although we always say that 1.9 is a very young age to diagnose a child. The child has to be above 3. But we are starting to see really young children displaying those symptoms. Yes.
And is it getting younger and younger, do we see? Because, I mean, like normally we're seeing issues with, for example, cancers, that children are getting it at a younger and younger age. So is this autism as well, and, just this general disabilities in children being picked up because of technology that's available to us?
Let me speak about this through various aspects. First thing of all, the American Society of Autism says that 10 years ago, 1 in 200 children were autistic. Last year, 1 in 50 children were autistic. This year, 1 in 20 children are expected to be autistic. So can you imagine what those figures are looking like? Secondly, I think doctors are really very, very eager, very, very excited to immediately label a child. I'm against labeling children. I'm against calling anybody disabled, because there are lots of things that you and I are not able to do ourselves. So how disabled are we? I'm all in favor of looking at the ability of a human being and seeing how the human being is able to function with whatever Allah Ta'ala has granted to that being. And a second thing, doctors are unable to find out because there's a very fuzzy boundary between autism, between sensory processing disorder, between executive functioning, and between ADD and ADHD. And because these boundaries are so fuzzy, the doctors are unable to figure out which diagnosis applies to which child. There are loads of children that have been diagnosed as autism with autistic features. They must be having autistic features, and autism is possible along with another disability or disorder. They can have a comorbidity with another disability or disorder. So very difficult, and also global developmental delay. I mean, for global developmental delay, a lot of parents think, right, so my child is not just delayed, my child is having an issue with autistic features, they're having autism. And only a professional who's in the field of autism, who's a research expert or a professional in the field of autism, and those who are occupational therapists, they are the ones who will be able to better figure out if a child has got autism or global developmental delay or sensory processing disorder or executive functioning or ADHD or ADD.
So there's at least 7 different categories that you are looking out for.
I would probably look at more if I remember at this moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. It boils down to is that in which category. But I think this is the worrying statistic: from 100, 1 from 200, then 1 to 50, now 1 in 20. So
1 in 20 this year. So next year, can you imagine what that will be?
So the question that a lot of people are also asking generally with regards to all the theories is that, is it due to the vaccinations that we are pumping into our children that are unnatural, which I feel personally on my behalf is that I do see that there is some form of correlation from the time when the child is immunized, vaccinated, to then, the signs becoming a little more apparent.
The science is becoming apparent and the pharmaceuticals are hiding more. Now, this is a very controversial topic, the topic of vaccinations. But I think you should know, Zuhair, my father was one of the first histopathologists in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He was the first doctor who built up the laboratories in Saudi Arabia. So I would like to tell you from his perspective, and he got awarded by the French government for his why vaccinate children when the endocrine system is the last to be formed in the human body? And that's a very vital question that all doctors should be addressing. So when there's no endocrine system in the children, then what are you vaccinating? Just I'm repeat that again. Not going to tell parents when endocrine system is the last one to be formed in the human system.
Before, your dad was given the award from the French because?
By the French government for presenting his paper on when the endocrine system is formed last in the human body, then what are you vaccinating so early for? And I should tell you what he did with when we had our own children. He didn't stop the vaccinations, but he delayed it. So my advice to the parents out there is, don't stop the vaccinations. The figures are going up the roofs. And week before last, we had a free screening schedule along with the King Faisal Specialist Hospital and the Sheraton Group of Hotels. And we had more than 500 people. And the number of autistic children that I saw was staggering. And I'm not just going to talk about autistic children that I'm seeing. I actually happen to diagnose a lot of the parents, and a lot of the times the children that I saw who had, psychosis or who were on the other side of the spectrum, let us say, I felt very sad to see that the children were toppling over totally due to parenting styles, not correcting unhealthy habits, and inconsistencies in the routine, which is leading to behavioral issues.
Mm. Yeah, and unfortunately, this is a massive issue, and I think one is about creating that awareness, but also because it seems that more and more children are being diagnosed with it, and automatically, whether you tell the parents don't worry about it or don't stress, it is one of those stigmas that once it's actually been declared out there, then automatically the brain has been geared that, oh no, now my life is over. And it's funny how
Well, I think it's because everybody has, all of us as teenagers have had the perfect dream for ourselves, or for a perfect dream of a perfect life for ourselves. And that's what we want for our children. But life has guaranteed nothing for any one of us. Children that are healthy today are probably not going to be so healthy when they are going to become parents themselves. You never know.
Yeah.
You never
And
know.
this is the problem.
My dear friend Sohada has joined in. Zuhair, she is going to be a next speaker, inshallah. She is an occupational therapist, not just an occupational therapist. Let me just take it from another viewpoint, that there are two aspects to how parents cope. One is called the problem-focused aspect, which is approaching therapists like myself for medicines or for interventions or for treatment. The other aspect is the emotional aspect, where people approach spiritual healers like yourself, Zuhair. They have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they pray, and they they take to religion, or they take to another meditation, or they take to mindfulness in order to cope. So between these two aspects, it's the dua and the dawa, as we say. The dua as in ruqya or hijama, or turning to our religion with zikr and everything, with sabr wa salah, as we have been advised, and I'm totally in favor of that. And on the other hand, also the parents who need help with emotional states, because we professional or we mental health advocates know it's our emotional state that actually becomes our mental state.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no such thing as a mental state. It's our emotional state that leads to our mental state.
Yeah. And I think this is where we come, with Aafiyah healing as well. It's not so much more about ruqya, but it's more about understanding that there is therapies that are available alongside conventional therapies that we are helping with, allowing the parents to cope with emotionally. So where people are holding on to anxiety, high levels of stress, that stress in itself, to a child that has got ADHD and they're hyperactive or they're autistic, that just for them, their sense of perception is heightened significantly more than ours. And when they see that you are stressed out and you've got an issue yourself, it further pushes them into their state much more deeper. And this is why one of the things that we work with our clients, the parents mainly, is to keep them in a calm state, is to keep them, to be detached away from that whole baggage of the burden that is upon them. And subhanAllah, I recently went to a family friend's house whose son is autistic, maybe hitting about 12, 13 years old. And he came and he sat down and is erratic in his behavior. But then he came and he put his eyes into my eyes. And his father just stopped. He goes, oh my God, he's never done this. He doesn't look at anyone in the eyes, not even his mother. And then he came and then he just felt that calmness, and he came and he put his head over here. I put my hand over his cheek, I rubbed it, and then he moved away.
Connection, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is it. It's all about for the parents to learn how to bring their state into calm. And that, alhamdulillah, is able to assist the child in their developmental stages as well, inshallah.
I'm totally of the opinion that, if you want a child to heal, you first need to heal the parents. Because when the parents are helped and they are in a better emotional state, then you start to notice that when the parents are healing, in essence, that's actually healing the child as well. So they're all interconnected. And I think a lot of premarital maybe awareness needs to be out there. You know,
Yeah.
I'm going to be a little blunt about this. I'm not going to be too kind.
No.
People know how to produce very easily, but after they produce, they don't know how to take care of what they've produced.
Mm. Yeah, and
Yeah.
they're not willing to take the responsibility of their action.
Because we are not as hardworking as our previous predecessors were. We are
Yeah.
not so high, you know, such hard workers. We are not able to cope easily. We are people who are prone to depression, bipolar mood disorders. We are prone to ADD. I mean, how many of us are probably roaming about diagnosed, and how many of us are roaming about undiagnosed?
Yeah, I think most are undiagnosed. I think
Most are undiagnosed.
but this is the thing, isn't it? That until someone doesn't tell you you've got a problem, you're okay. But the moment someone highlights it for you that you're not okay, then our cultural mindset also throws us out of balance totally.
Well, because there's a stigma attached to it.
Absolutely.
Immediately thrown
So we
into the
can't be
reject pile.
we can't be seen to be.
Yeah, if you say you have a mental health issue, you go immediately into the reject pile.
Yeah. So this is it, and this is an issue.
Yeah, but it's very unfortunate for the children because unless and until the parents are going to be practical about it, unless and until they are going to start getting the children diagnosed very early, what is going to happen is the child is going to end up being a victim of the system. And the
Yeah.
system is the one that is going to throw the child off, you know, is going to reject the child or marginalize that child or label that child for life.
Yeah. And this is it. And again, you are taking away any chance of that child's self-esteem from actually growing as well. That if they are treated in the way that they are, and that the whole environment around it, but subhanallah, you know, this is the problem I see, that there are people who are not married, they are crying to get married. There are people who are married, are crying that they are married. There are women who are divorced, men who are divorced, who are crying that they are divorced. There are men and women crying that they don't have children. And then when they have children, they're still crying. And then when they have disabled children, they're even crying even more. You know, so I think the whole of life, whichever phase you're in, you'll always be crying for the next phase. And unfortunately, we really need to learn to detach away and then be able to deal with those issues that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed as a test for us in this life.
Yeah, I think the somewhere lack of faith, you know, but that happens to the best of us, you know, to the most religious of us. And, you know, I mean, who did not get tested in the faith?
Yeah.
But if a human being, you know, I'm going to address the Muslims in here, that if you truly understand the concept of inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun, that is, from him we came, turn. There's never any important weight to the dunya in this, you know. So for people who are using this fleeting dunya, this fleeting moment in order to, you know, make themselves comfortable in here, you were never meant to be comfortable. Even Adam's alayhi salam was sent over here as a punishment. So, you know, don't just get too comfortable in this dunya.
No, definitely. Let's have a look at some of the questions that have come through, then inshallah we can start answering them. Assalamu alaikum. This is from Naeem Shah Jr. For having the program. I very much. What would you recommend for parents who have to homeschool their special needs child? Can you recommend any program?
For homeschooling for special needs, I don't know any program as such, but I guess what you can do is get in touch with me, and maybe the program that we use with our child, with our children at the center, maybe I can just help you, you know, apply that at home. But I'm not really in favor of homeschooling special needs children, because the first aspect of learning for any child is imitation, and imitation comes best from peer groups. It does not come from the parents. Yes, parents can be good role models, but imitation is best between peer groups.
And what do you mean by a peer group for those that are not aware of that?
Peer groups are children of your own age, people of your own age.
Okay, and with similar issues.
Children learn best when they are placed with children who are functioning at the same level as they are. Somebody else also asked me, what is early intervention? Early intervention is from 0 to 3 years. And I can tell you that I'm not in favor of it, because 0 to 3 is the mental, not the mental age of the child. 0 to 3 is the chronological age of the child. And when we are, you tend to look at the mental age or the child, and I believe that should really be in all be 0 to 3 mental age, not chronological age.
Okay, inshallah. I think we lost you for most of that part about, so all we heard was chronological age about 3 times. So,
Oh, all right. I can repeat that. That's not a problem. I'm saying that somebody was asking what is early intervention. Early intervention is from 0 to 3, and the experts of the book say it is 0 to 3 chronological age, and I'm not in favor of that, because having worked with these children, I know 0 to 3 should be the mental age of a child, no
okay.
matter what the chronological age is.
Yeah. The sister Sobia was asking, did you say while screening you saw parents who themselves were on the spectrum? People spend all their lives not knowing that they were autistic.
Well, you
Is
can
that right?
develop autism at any time. You do not have to be born with it.
Oh, is it?
You don't have to be born with it.
What causes it?
Loads of things. I can't list them all in here.
Okay, give me
For
5.
each person, it is different.
Give me,
It may be biological inheritance, it may be in your genes, it may be in your environment, it may be the age of the father, it may be the age of the mother, it may be the vulnerabilities in your body, it may be in your system, it's what's in your gut. Because a lot of people, especially for those who are depressed and those whose systems are not able to regulate themselves. Regulation means controlling your thoughts and your behavior. When you're not able to do that, people with depression, anxiety, and all those people suffering, I will say one thing, even to the parents of children with special needs, 70% of serotonin, which is our feel-good is formed in our gut. So basically, whatever we are putting in here is what's happening in here.
yeah. So, okay, that's fine. So, from what I deduce from that statement that you've just made, is that due to any of those factors, due to emotional stress and baggage, if not handled correctly, it can trigger off this whole situation inside of a person at any age in time, like any other disease.
It can trigger off executive functioning issues, because majority of us human beings, we function at 2 levels. One of them is cognitive level, and the other one is the metacognitive level. Cognitive level is where you are just thinking, or you are understanding your thought processes, which is analyzing, categorizing, coding, decoding, memory, perception, reality, blah, blah, blah. That can go on. Metacognition is thinking about that thinking. And that's when you function higher as a human being. And I'm having Sobia here, I can see her question. Sorry, Zohair, if I'm just putting that in. Isn't autism a neurological disorder? Parts of brain don't function the way they should. It is considered to be a neurological disorder, but till now, they actually have not found the real reason for it.
Yeah, so at the
any
moment,
disability or any disorder is going to have its root in, in your neurological system.
Absolutely, okay. Yeah, so Maniza Banu Sheikh is saying that there are also beliefs, particularly in the subcontinent culture, that cousin marriages have a higher tendency to produce children on the spectrum. What is your perspective and advice on this? 2 of my siblings are married to paternal cousins and have 1 child each who is on the spectrum while the other child is normal. Does it mean that a mutation exists in my family, that if another sibling married another paternal cousin, the offspring will definitely be autistic or be born with special needs? So it's
Well, we
not
already know
really
through
about,
research.
yeah.
I
This is
lost you for some
scientifically
time.
proven that when you have recessive coming together.
Well, first cousins marrying within the family, what happens is that if you have got a contaminated gene, when you are marrying into the same family, what happens is you're actually taking back more genes from the contaminated pool and creating more children who are going to have that, contaminated gene. So yes, that's a part of it. And a lot of people think that, uh, they go back into the Islamic or the religious books and they say, well, we were supposed to marry within our tribe or within our social circle or within our immediate family. That's not correct, because I did hear from a credible sheikh that we were supposed to marry outside in order to increase the family ties.
Yeah, yeah, which is a shame, unfortunately. Inner
Yes.
contentment is low. Yeah, okay. Let's see if um, early intervention helps if child needs physical therapy. When child is behind some milestones, isn't that true? I don't know what that means. Is autism a neurological disorder? Yes, parts of the brain have been okay. Can autism be reversed completely?
If the child is really young and the child is just having autistic features and not been classically autistic, because autism spectrum disorder has got 5 conditions in it, and
Okay.
that is classically autistic. Then you have got pervasive developmental disorder, PDD, and then you have got PDD NOS, pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified. Then you have got childhood disintegrative disorder, and you have got Rett syndrome. Rett's and childhood disintegrative disorders are highly profound, and the child usually, it's progressive, so the child usually dies. But PDD, NOS, if the child is diagnosed at a really young age, the prognosis is fantastic. Yes, the signs can be reversed.
Okay. And what generally is needed to reverse autism if picked up early?
Intervention.
Yeah, what is
Intervention.
intervention? Define intervention. Is
Intervention
it
is
special needs with
okay. Getting in, therapeutic interventions.
okay.
Sorry,
What
Zohair, I
would that
lost you.
okay, what would that involve?
Depending on the needs of the child, first thing of all, in therapies, you would definitely need occupational therapy. People say that, speech therapy is first, but I disagree. Occupational therapy should be number one. And then you're going to have speech language pathology and other things as well. We have hippotherapy going on, which is therapy with horses, because children with autism, one of the key components of autism is not just social isolation, but it's impaired speech, be it receptive or be it expressive. And parents are highly I'm trying to search for the right word. They think that getting in speech therapy is going to, immediately allow the child to produce speech and, to communicate. I have got a wake up sign for you all, that it is not speech therapy which gets the speech going, unless and until the cognitive processes of a child are developed enough. That child is not going to be following your directions, which is his receptive speech, and he's not going to be answering you back, which is going to be his expressive speech. So majority of the parents just question us on, why is my child not communicating? Why is my child not, understanding? Why is my child not listening to me? It might be information processing disorder as well, and only an educational psychologist can figure that out. But with any therapy, the key is cognitive skills. Unless and until they are developed well enough for the child to allow his thought processes to work, in a good functioning, healthy manner, the rest of the therapies are not going to help.
Okay. We had another question come through from a sister saying that my daughter is 2 years old, extraordinarily stubborn, not a normal one for everything. Like she doesn't want to wear a dress, which I went. She doesn't want to sit where in one place. She doesn't want anyone to touch her or change her position. She also does something like crossing her legs and just acting in a different way. So now what can you answer for that, please?
That poor child, that's a child that's trying to regulate. Her body is not allowing her, our sensory systems, the senses in our body, they need to be regulated. Regulated, as I said, is controlling your thoughts and your behavior. And unfortunately, I think Suhada will add more to this. Definitely, the child has got sensory processing disorder. And because she's two, I think how old is she, Zuhair? Any
Yeah,
idea?
2 years old. 2 years old.
Any idea on how old that child is?
Yeah, 2 years old.
She's two. She's way too young. Yeah, she's way too young to be diagnosed. And it's wrong to diagnose a child when you have not seen the child yourself. But sensory processing disorder is definitely there. And as soon as the child, maybe still now, I suggest to the parents to download the MChat. It's capital MCHAT. Download that, take screenshots of the results, and maybe they can send it across to me. Send it in the, PM me.
Okay, inshallah. So
MChat, that's right.
I've added that into the comments, MChat, and you can also type it up later, and people can get in
Yeah,
touch.
I'll send a link in the, yeah, I'll send a link.
Yeah, inshallah, let's do that. So, okay, that's that answered. Sometimes children are developing, but parents don't understand. Yeah. Is there anything else that we can add on? And before I move on, can all our viewers that are there, 45 viewers, can you please share this video onto your timelines? There's a little link that says share at the bottom. So please just click share and it'll go onto your timelines so that inshallah we can further this discussion. This 1 hour is not going to be enough, but allows for everyone, inshallah, to get an insight into the way to deal with it. So like we were saying, inshallah, is there is from one side is the problem focused, where you go to the therapist, you go to the psychopathologist and all the rest of them to do their work with them. But on the other hand, what is so important alongside, where parents forget, because their focus then becomes the child and the illness and the disability. But really, in order to have a holistic approach to this whole healing journey for the child, that the parents must also become balanced, that the parents need to emotionally become grounded. And this is somewhere, alhamdulillah, where we see that between hope for exceptional needs and Aafiyah healing, there is a bridge, there's a gap that people need to be fulfilled and to be focused on. And inshallah, this is where we can offer advice, me on my part from a therapeutic approach, but from your part more, the physical diagnosis and the actual working of how we go through the whole system of, like you were saying, that involving the child and going through the whole process, isn't it, of the education of it.
Can I add something over here, Zuhair?
Ji.
When we have, a pain in our stomach, we become so obsessed with that pain that we are not able to focus on anything else. All our energies are directed towards the pain that is making us so uncomfortable. And this is what happens when you have a child with disability, that you have got so much pain present in your life that you're not able to focus on anything else except for the source of that pain. Now, what happens is, when you are giving a lot of energy and focusing on your source of pain, that is called expenditure. That means all your energy is being directed towards where the pain originates from. So guess what happens? You are spending so much energy on that source of pain that you have got no more energy left to focus on anything, including healing or self-healing, or helping out your child. So for parents, if you have got all these distractions, park them. All that negativity that does not add to your life, remove them. All those unhelpful remarks from the grandparents, cut them off, because the child needs you more than people with unhealthy minds and unhealthy tongues do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is where we really need to take ownership of our lives and be able to understand the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gifted us a child. And that child has certain challenges that it doesn't fit the norm that we have grown up with, or the expectation of society. And I think this is where there's a disparity, unfortunately, that we have an expectation that our marriage will be perfect, which generally it isn't, and then we'll have the perfect children, and usually they're not, and then they will grow up in a particular way, and they don't, and then they will be namazi, they'll be hafiz and all this, but they're not. So every reality in our life, unfortunately, step after step is crushed. And then, subhanallah, with that emotional baggage of so far getting to the fact of getting married and then, having a child and then turning out that, hold on, the child also was not as we expected. This is a crumbling effect on the parents' self-esteem and everything. So what do we do? And
Well,
this is what...
I think that is one of the first thing, why parents go into denial is because admitting that there's something wrong with your child means you are admitting that there's something wrong with yourself.
Yeah.
Such a desi way of thinking, not just a desi way of thinking. I think even the Goras and everybody else is inclined towards this. No matter how messed up they are, people still expect that they will produce the best thing possible. And
yeah.
We know that that's highly impossible in today's world.
Yeah. No, but this is it. And unfortunately, people are living in this
realm
of expectation. Sorry, can you hear me now? Okay. Yeah, is that better now? Okay, yeah. So this is it, that a lot of the time, unfortunately, people live with expectations, and the unrealistic expectations is what drains the energy away from us. And this is the theory by which Aafiyah healing works, is that when your focus is on everything else but you, then you are draining it, you are spending that energy. But a lot of the time, there are times when that energy needs to come back in, it needs to be replenished. And if it isn't replenished, then subhanAllah, it's going to cause a drought within our being. And so really, I would challenge the parents.
We cannot pour from an empty cup.
But that's what's happening. They are scraping and this is a shame. So we are encouraging, okay? I want you to encourage your parents. I'm encouraging the parents that invest a little bit of time back into yourself. Give us the chance to work with you on an emotional healing therapy sequence to detach you away from the problem. If we can lift for you the burden that you are carrying on your shoulders and make you feel lighter for that moment, then give us that opportunity to do so. Because we, alhamdulillah, this is what we want, that people are empowered. They shouldn't feel that there isn't no help and support for them. There is support for them. And I think this is one of my reasons for doing these seminars, is that throughout the world, I'm interviewing all different people who have that skill set, but when you look at it, everyone is suffering wherever they are in the world. So again, it's coming back down to educating ourselves to understand that there are solutions there, that we can help you to learn to manage to cope better. We don't know if we can guarantee you a full cure, because cure is only from Allah. But inshallah, we ask that Allah makes us the means by which someone's life is actually made easier, inshallah. Your thoughts on that?
Ameen. Yes, totally true. And adding over here, getting an accurate diagnosis is very important for those parents who have been in denial, because you have to know what you're dealing with and expect. And getting a diagnosis is going to help you prepare for a better quality of life, not just for your child, but for yourself.
Yeah.
But for yourself. And many of the parents do not do that. We were also going to discuss on, what parents who do not have money, who do not have the finances to go to, to a medical person or to a therapist. Getting a diagnosis is the first step, and without an accurate diagnosis, that that you're not able to get the interventions available. And inshallah, once you get a diagnosis, that opens up doors. You have people who will advise you. There are loads of places that are having a sliding scale of fees, and those are the places that can help you as well. And guess what? If nothing else, become a mental health advocate yourself. go in and learn from the other specialists on how things are done. Like the parent who told me that they want to get the child homeschooled. I'm not in favor of it, but maybe if you join the place and, you know, they will allow. We don't allow at our center because the children don't behave normally when the parents are around. But other places might allow you to work as well, and that should help you learn. That's what happens in early intervention. Every early intervention division in every center of rehabilitation allows moms to come in with the babies. I mean, the really young children who are there in our center, they come along with the mothers. The mothers have to learn how to do the physiotherapy. They have to learn what is being done in occupational therapy, and they have to learn how speech therapy is being applied. Apart from learning the key areas of skill development, which is cognition, fine motor, socialization, behavior modification, and self-help. And when the parent learns about it, guess what happens? They carry over these activities at home. No center can accomplish, you know, all these goals. You need carryover. You need the child to constantly get trained in these things. MChat is not an app, Aman. It is a test that you can do online. I'll be posting the link to that. And again, as I said, that, these children, because of the cognitive, there's a problem with the cognitive processes, the short-term memory or the working memory is very weak. And unless and until you rehearse, practice that skill, it will be lost. And the only way to get it into your long-term memory is through rehearsal, constant rehearsal. So that child, especially I'm facing an uphill battle with the ministry over here myself, where they give 4 months off because yes, the weather conditions are terrible. 4 months, the summer is, the scorching heat is impossible. But in 4 months, the children regress. And it's like starting from the basic skill level all over again. And that is just sad. For all the centers operating, I don't think they should be taking a break at all. They shouldn't be taking break. There should be other therapists who will take the place of these therapists, and they should be continuing the work.
Yeah. And I think a good indicator, you know, if you can share with us maybe some online resources where parents can actually connect with. Inshallah, if you can mention some now, but also later on share it in this chat. What sort of, any links to resources, please?
Yeah, I'll definitely be posting up for the MChat, because that's very important for those parents who think that, you know, the child is behaving irregular, not normal. First thing of all, for the parents out there, never compare your children. You know, they are like the 5 fingers of your hand, each finger differently positioned, each finger of a different size and of a different function. And children are the same way. They are like the 5 fingers of your hand. When people compare, and that places, you know, the other children at a disadvantage, and which I find very sad. I will be posting if anybody wants. Rehearsal, yes, that's what therapy is all about. Yeah, totally, rehearsal is very, very important. And I'll also be posting if somebody wants a list of questions, you know, developmental milestones or anything, please just put it in a comment and I'll make sure I share that with you. If you want me to share warning signs to look out for, I'll share that as well. But I'm of the opinion the child does not, especially for those who are having children with behavioral issues, the child does not come from the womb learning all that behavior. That behavior has been modeled, that behavior has been taught at home. So mental health on one side, behavioral issues on another side, and is only eating this and not eating that. Guess what? Who gave him the unhealthy habits? He was not born eating nuggets and drinking 7-Up. We introduced those. So we as adults have a greater
Yeah.
responsibility towards these children. I'm totally against parents who bring in the child and say, my child is behaving badly. Before we look at the child's behavior, I think we need to look at the parenting styles.
Yes.
Blaming children for things.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not for the teachers who I'm seeing some teachers watching over there, and the teachers are asking as well on parental denial. I've already discussed that. If you go to the beginning of the video,
Yeah.
trauma,
Follow it.
having a child with special needs, yes, is very painful for any parent. It's very painful. And denial is a coping mechanism. It's a self-defense mechanism where parents, rather than, you know, um, thinking about, because we do have a very, unfortunately, a very backward mentality of thinking that if there's something wrong with my child, it means there's something wrong with me. So
Yeah.
they rather skirt the issue, they rather curtain the warning signs. And as I said, parents want to see children's strength, and they want to see progress. They don't want to see weaknesses. They don't want to see faults. So parenting style should be in the firing line, not the child.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
And if, sorry, I'm coming back to Aman, who's saying that
yeah.
she's having twins. One is behaving very differently. Well, guess what? We are 4 siblings, and each one of us is different, and we all behave differently. But again, as I'm saying, your daughter, Aman, sounds like she has got sensory processing disorder, and she also sounds like she's having her body is having a difficult time regulating. I need to see that child. It's very wrong to diagnose anybody just on the basis of what the parents produce. To me, information coming in from the parents or from other professionals, I take it, but I put it on the side. My way of diagnosis is working with the child, having experience of the child, and of course, I do not work with those children where the parents are difficult.
Yeah. And I think that's it. That's important. That
Yeah,
you
because
need
there's no
a
healing in that. There's no healing in that. There's no healing in
no.
that, because when we work with children with disabilities and disorders, somewhere we also heal. So when you are working with parents who are not supportive, who are not child-centered, parents who do not believe in therapy, who believe that there's a jinn on the child, parents who believe that, this is the child is a product of some sin or something, where the father is not supportive of the mother, where the mother is not supportive of her husband. Families like those, honestly, are no.
Yeah.
I wouldn't touch them with a barge pole. I wouldn't. There's so much you can teach people. They can go somewhere else for their learning. Our job is with the children, and if we wish for the children to heal, we need to heal the parents. And unfortunately, the time is not enough to work with parents. The time's not there. So I think there should be a different division. Many a time, I think I have suggested to the ministry that if you're allowing me to work with the children in the morning, allow me to run the center for the parents in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Because without involving the family, the healing is incomplete.
Yeah, and that's something that I would like to incorporate from my part, from our working with people with emotional imbalances, and strengthening them with coping strategies more than anything. I think that is very key as well at that point in time. So, khair, alhamdulillah, I think we're reaching the end of our time, and alhamdulillah, I think with this poor connection that we've had, but I think the message has still got across. I think people have benefited. But inshallah, I think what's going to happen after this is that this was the introduction to the Aafiyah Healing Summit itself. So inshallah, taking some of these questions that have come through today and other questions that will follow through, then I think we will have another discussion, but more focused on specific topics. And inshallah, in that time, I think in the next...
I think, yeah, as you're saying, this was just testing grounds. I think if parents send in specific questions or, specific behaviors or, that would really help me to address them specifically. Right now, I'm just, just giving a general overview. But to the parents out there who are having a child with disability, What a blessing in your house you have. You have got no idea. Don't compare your children. Try to find yourself a social support system, because no man is an island. Get more help. Exercise, exercise, exercise. Movement is the key to everything. Movement is the key to healing. And you will realize, on what our body releases when we exercise, when we sweat it out. Don't hide your feelings. Don't beat yourself up to it. And the next time your in-laws suggest to you that the child is a product of your sins, you know where to park those in-laws. Right next to your garbage bin.
Not physically, I hope, but anyway. So yeah. We have to be diplomatic here. So anyway, inshallah. But no, Jazakallah khair. So I think for everyone watching it, inshallah, if they can just connect to the Aafiyah Healing page and also Dr. Uzma's page, which is Hope for Exceptional Needs. So inshallah, both pages will be linked.
I'll add the
If you
link
can
over there. I'll add the link over
yeah,
there.
so go there and like those pages so that you can be updated with all the work that we're doing. And inshallah, I pray that this is our first, inshallah, introduction to bridges being built, inshallah, from the UK to Saudi once again. Hopefully not in arms deals, but inshallah, at least through healing deals, inshallah, that way that Allah bless us with healing the hearts that people so badly and desperately need.
Absolutely, inshallah. Inshallah.
So Jazakallah khair.
Inshallah, Jazakallah
for your
khair.
time. I know it's late, but I don't think you'll want to sleep. But anyway, so inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك وصلى الله على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه وسلم. جزاك الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.